Welcome to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast, the show where brilliant professionals share how to sharpen the universal skills required to flourish at work. Enjoy more career fun, wins, meaning, and money with your host, Pete Makaitis.
Hello, and thanks for joining us here with episode 783 with Abby Marks-Beale. I have frequently heard from you, dear listeners, that you want to be able to accomplish more in a limited amount of time. Well, our guest, Abby Marks-Beale, brings the goods here. She is one of the foremost experts on speed reading, and she shares her wisdom with us. So learn 1, how to quadruple your reading speed with just a note card. 2, the best ways to retain more of what you read. And 3, awesome tools for optimal screen reading. So if you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items that we've mentioned here, please pay us a visit at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP783 and check out some of our goodies, like every episode tagged by the topic and competency covered, the full text transcripts, and more, or at awesomeatyourjob.com. Now here's Abby's story. Abby Marks-Beale is a speed reading expert, consummate educator, and professional speaker who enjoys teaching busy people how to read smarter, faster, and just plain better. For the past 30 years, she has taught thousands to build reading confidence and competence through the knowledge of simple yet powerful active reading strategies. She's the author of 10 Days to Faster Reading, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Speed Reading, and Speed Reading, a Little-Known Time-Saving Superpower. Big thanks to Abby for sharing her wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. And big thanks to our sponsor, Acorns. Acorns makes it easy to start automatically saving and investing for your future. You don't need a lot of money or expertise to invest with Acorns. In fact, you can get started with just your spare change. Acorns recommends an expert-built portfolio that fits you and your money goals, then automatically invests your money for you. NerdWallet.com, whom I love on these sorts of matters, gives Acorns a whopping 4.7 stars and says, quote, if you want to make the most of your spare change, there's no better place to do that than Acorns. Head to acorns.com/awesome or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. And we got a legal disclaimer here. It may not be representative of all clients. Tier 1 compensation provided. Compensation provides an incentive to positively promote Acorns. View important disclosures at acorns.com/awesome. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. Please consider your objectives, risk tolerance, and Acorns' fees before investing. Acorns Advisors LLC, Acorns, is an SEC-registered investment advisor. Brokerage services are provided to clients of Acorns by Acorns Securities LLC, member FINRA/SIPC. For more information, visit acorns.com. One sponsor to check out is Storyworth. Whenever I'm thinking about meaningful Father's Day gifts, Storyworth leaps to mind. Storyworth helps you preserve precious memories and stories from your father for years to come. Each week, Storyworth emails your loved ones a thought-provoking question that you get to help pick, such as, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? I personally love the prompt so much that I have refreshed Storyworth's questions page many times looking for more. Storyworth makes the writing process super quick and easy. All your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a story, and then you get a quick copy of that. And after a year of this fun, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book that you'll be able to share and revisit for generations to come. Families love Storyworth so much, they've got 25,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot and have millions of stories preserved. So give all the fathers in your life a unique, heartfelt gift they'll all cherish for years. Storyworth. Right now, you can save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/awesome. That's storyworth.com/awesome to save $10 on your first purchase. One sponsor to check out is Harvard Business Review. This brilliant magazine, published at hbr.org, is the leading destination for smart management thinking. Fun fact, HBR has been mentioned in 108 episodes of the show. That's because HBR has great stuff that comes up often. They've got explainer videos, podcasts, real-world case studies, and much more. I think of HBR each night that I put on my special orange glasses. Their article, Will Blue Light Glasses Improve Your Sleep?, revealed that those who wore them reported better sleep and a 7% improvement in work performance as compared to those who wore the sham glasses. So I cite HBR anytime anyone tells me that I look silly wearing them. Now, much of HBR's content is available for free when you sign up at their site. Subscriptions that get you unlimited content cost $10 a month. If you visit hbr.org/subscriptions and enter the promo code AWESOME, you can save 10% off of that subscription. Again, to save 10% off of your HBR subscription, go to www.hbr.org/subscriptions and enter the promo code AWESOME. Now, here's Abby. Abby, welcome to How to Be Awesome at Your Job.
Thanks for having me, Pete. Much appreciated.
Well, I'm excited to talk about speed reading with you. We've only covered this like once or twice before out of nearly 800 interviews. So I know there's much more goodness to share, but I want to start with hearing you say you used to hate reading. What's the story?
So I think a lot of people feel that way, that like when you're in elementary school, it's like so great. You can read like fiction and stories are great. And then you get into middle school and high school and they make you read these nasty textbooks that aren't fun. No pictures or not many pictures and things that you have to learn. So I got turned off to reading at about that time. I used to love it until I was like in seventh grade. And then it just wasn't fun anymore. And then I hated it until after college. And it was the kind of thing that was like, I never understood why anyone in their right mind would read a newspaper on a regular basis. And I was just averse to reading, period. And so I majored in Spanish in college, which helped because I could read word by word and it was okay.
Hmm.
And so the comprehension part and such was just a very different animal at that time. So yeah, I used to hate to read, but I learned through a job that I got soon after college, having my degree helped to get this job, that this is not hard to do. This is something that can be learned, and it's just a set of strategies, strategic things that people can do to become better, smarter, more effective readers.
Hmm. Well, so I'm intrigued when it comes to we can be better, stronger, more effective, faster. Can you maybe lay out like what's possible in terms of just for normal professionals as opposed to, I don't know, I'm thinking about like memory champions or world record speed readers. Like what could be possible for us in terms of, well, hey, I've been reading my whole life and it's going fine. What are we missing out on?
So you think it's going fine, but for some people, it's not. It's like I know how to read, but I don't like to read. There's this thing that I talk about called your reading attitude. Everybody has one. And I say, fill in the blank with this. I am a blank reader. And I start off all my programs that way. And it basically, if you can put in the word like, I am a good reader, I am an avid reader, I'm a voracious reader, those are all like really good positive terms. And that means that reading is something that you will do and you find it valuable and it doesn't waste your time and it typically doesn't make you fall asleep and you don't reread a lot. But others that put in the words like, I'm a bad reader, I'm a slow reader, a distracted reader, any of the words that are more negative means that they look at reading like the plague. It's like, it's going to waste my time. It's going to be boring. I'm going to fall asleep. I'm not going to understand it. I'm going to have to reread. And so what I aim to help people understand is that they can be much more confident about who they are as readers just by having some strategies. And even if they think they're really good readers, which they probably are, they can still learn a few more because we haven't had training since elementary school pretty much. Most people haven't taken classes or, upgraded their skills. It's like, here's the words, folks, go at it. That's pretty much what they gave to us. And then we had to figure out how to manage the reading workload from there on.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm thinking about my own story. I think I'm a fine reader.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy reading things. Sometimes I do need to reread, or I do seem slow to my own judgment, I guess. I don't know. I haven't timed it recently. And so tell us just what is possible, what benefits or magic is on the other side of mastering this skill?
The Rich Habits Institute did a study about reading habits of the wealthy. And it talks about, and I'm just going to read to you a couple of the percentages. 86% of the wealthy love to read. 85% of the wealthy read 2 or more educational books every month. 88% of the wealthy read 30 minutes or more each day. And 63% of the wealthy listen to audiobooks or podcasts during their commute to work.
Mm-hmm.
So for any of your audiences thinking, wow, how can I make more money at what I do? The more that you read, and I encourage more nonfiction, things that are going to make you better at who you are and what you do, that those, when applied, are going to be incredibly helpful for your life and your career. So I agree that the more that you read, I think the tendency to make more money is definitely there.
Oh, that's good. Thank you, Abby.
It's about feeling more confident about who you are as a reader if you need that. It's about having certain strategies to apply. So some people think that when you learn how to read faster, everything has to be read fast. But that's not true. It's about creating a gear shift. And I use this concept of 5 gears and I show my hand. So imagine your hand. You look at your hand, right? On your hand, you have 5 fingers, which are basically 5 gears. And gear 1 is your thumb and gear 2 is your pointer finger, 3, 4, and 5 appropriately. Keep going. So that's 5 gears. Most people are stuck in gears 1 and 2 because they don't know how to get into gears 3, 4, and 5. So it's about becoming more efficient, more effective, depending, like if you're reading something you're very familiar with, you shouldn't be in gear 1 or 2. You should be able to get into minimally 3 and definitely possibly 4, depending on why you're reading something and what you need it for. And so it's about, I call it active, mindful, and conscious. Those are the 3 things that I don't think readers are when they read. They're like, oh, here I am. My eyes are going to hit the page and I'm going to hope that I understand what it says. And it's very much a conscious process, at least the way that I teach it and the way that I do it and the people that learn from me do it. It's not going so fast that you don't understand, or as Woody Allen said, it's reading War and Peace in 5 minutes and it's a book about Russia. That's like the worst quote. And I use it all the time because I hate it, but it's something that people can relate to. But I want to give you my definition of speed reading because it's different than other people that teach speed reading. So it's a set of active, mindful, and conscious strategies that allow you to get what you need quickly from any reading material in an efficient and an effective manner. So it's not about going so fast that you don't understand. That's called speed looking, not speed reading. And so it's being efficient and effective, active, mindful, and conscious.
And can you define what is gear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
So there's different speeds. It's basically gear 1 and 2. They're anywhere from about 100 to maybe 250, 300 words a minute. That would be gears 1 and 2.
Okay.
And then gears 3, 4, and 5 are anywhere from like 350 all the way up to 1200, 1500, depending on what you can do. So that's not like wicked fast, although for some people it sounds that way. And the average reading speed of most people that haven't had training is around 250. So if you think about, okay, if they're in gear 1 and 2, that's around 250. Then if they could get into gear 3, 4, or 5, they could easily go the other way, which could be 800 or 1,000 words per minute when appropriate. Using certain strategies. So it's about using that gear shift, just like your car. Like sometimes when there's traffic, you got to slow down. And when there's on the open highway, you can go into 5th gear. And it's about knowing what's on your radar, what's in front of you, what do you need to know? How much do you already know? Like, okay, for example, I work with lawyers or doctors sometimes, and I teach them how to read better and faster. I said, look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a doctor. You guys know you have background knowledge that I don't have. We could sit down with the same study. They're reading a study or they're reading a legal document, and they're going to read it probably faster with much better comprehension than I will because I don't have the background knowledge. You need to have the understanding of the vocabulary, of the concepts, the structure. They have that, which I don't. But put them into my world, reading educational material, reading speed reading material, things like I know how to get through that stuff a lot better and faster than they probably can. So it's about your background knowledge too.
Okay. Well, so then, quadrupling the reading speed sounds magically enticingly powerful in terms of what might be possible for just like slamming through an email inbox or looking through reports or doing research. I mean, being able to pull that off 4 times as fast could mean going home early or having time to do the more fun strategic work or the people development stuff that is being neglected. So are you saying that it is in fact possible via practice and strategy to read at 4 times the average speed, if we're 250, to go to 1,000 plus without losing comprehension?
As long as you have, number one, the background knowledge, you know what it's talking about, you're familiar with it. And number 2, that you're using the right strategy for the right reason. And so 2 things I want to say. One is that in order to get into those gears of 4 and 5, what you'll find is that you have to use a tool. And the tools that I talk about are using your hands or a card to read with. You have to find something to put on either your screen or your paper that's going to help you track your eye movements. Because your eye movements, they get tired just going across the lines and back to the beginning and across the line and back to the beginning. But if you have something moving on your page or on your screen, you're able to follow it much faster. And so and for me, even to get into those higher gears of 4 or 5, I have to use my hands or a white card to read with. And so that's for some people, it's just really uncomfortable because they're not used to doing it. And I explain that, yeah, it is uncomfortable at first, but once you get the habit, you're sold on it because that is how you get to those higher gears.
Well, that sounds easy. I just
It is.
get a note card and then move it fast, and that's all I got to do, Abby? Is that what we're saying here?
So, yes, but the white card, this is my favorite thing to share with people. It's called the white card method. It's taking a blank white card or the backside of a business card that's blank or a blank piece of white paper.
Okay.
And like that, yep. Just like as I'm seeing it, not everyone's seeing that, but yes, it's blank white card. And if you have like a magazine, newspaper, or book, whatever in front of you, most people would put that card underneath the line that they're reading, and they would put it below.
Okay.
And it's just a natural thing because when we're learning how to read, that's where you would put it because you want to leave exposed what you've just read so that if you feel uncomfortable, you can go back and reread it. But as the adult reader, the more skilled reader, you're blocking where you're going and leaving available what you've already read, which means you can go back. It's something called regression. You don't want to go back and reread things. So to use the card effectively, it must go above the first line that you're reading. So it pushes you down and it blanks out or blacks out what you've already read. So the tendency to go backwards is a whole lot less. You can still pick up the card if you lost your place.
Okay.
But it's really meant like, here, let's keep it going. Let's go straight down. And it's very, very effective.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm not cutting out a window pane, but rather I'm blocking that which I have already read and bringing it down. And
you're covering what you've already read and leaving open what you haven't read.
So that means the note card border edge margin is above my line, my
Correct.
active line. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
And so
you got it.
So tell me, all I got to do is get my card, put it at the top, bring it down at a pace 4 times than what I normally do, and bam, I'm speed reading, and that's all it takes.
But it's not necessarily just go 4 times. You build to that. You start wherever you start, you have a starting point, and then you try that strategy as well as there's other strategies I teach called keywords and phrases. It's so how do you pick up all those words that you're going over pretty quickly with your hands or a card? And so being able to know that one word at a time is not the most efficient, but finding the bigger, more important words in the text is important. Finding phrases, groups of words that form thoughts. Imagine throwing thoughts back to your brain at one time instead of one word at a time. The brain loves that. It's about active, mindful, conscious strategies. You stay awake when you read now because you've put yourself into a thinking place. I call it a quiet place. You've set yourself up for learning, reading success. I mean, you could learn all this stuff in my program, put yourself in a really noisy place, and it's going to be really hard, to focus. But if you can get your environment the way you like it to get the concentration you need, then you add all these different things. It's magical. And it doesn't mean laying in bed. I hate to say, it's like sitting up at a desk or table, a place that we've been conditioned to work. It could be kitchen table. Your work desk may not be the best unless you're reading web pages because there's too much to do at your desk. There's, the phone and there's email and there's to-dos that pop up and dingers and whatever. It's like you want to move to a quieter place if you can. For those that work in offices, go to a conference room or a cafeteria off hours. For those that are entrepreneurs and work from home, just like get out of your office to a quieter, cleaned off desk, table, kitchen table, dining room table, but avoid the lazy boy chair unless you don't really care if you get too comfortable.
Okay. And then with these phrases, does that mean I've heard the term subvocalize, which means I am reading each word inside my mind's ear, like your bio. She has taught thousands to build reading confidence and competence through the knowledge of simple yet powerful active reading strategies. So am I not doing that when I'm rocking at the 1,000 plus words per minute level?
Subvocalization, first of all, know that a lot of people have it because we've learned, at least here in the United States, that we've learned to sound it out, hear it in your head. It's called phonics. That's how we've learned. And so when you learned how to read, they didn't tell you by the time you had a good sight vocabulary about 7th or 8th grade that you don't need to do that anymore. And so you just kept doing it. And so we have this mental whispering that goes on in the head, and it's hard to get rid of completely. So I tell people, don't expect it to be gone. But the faster you read, the less you can do it, because you can only read about 150 to 200 words a minute out loud quickly.
Mhm.
And if you're reading at 250 or 300, even as your base level, you're not reading every single word. And so you will read less, mentally whisper less, the faster you go. And as long as you're understanding what you're reading, it doesn't matter.
Well, so that's just kind of mind-blowing in terms of
Yes, it is, isn't it?
that if I am reading, but I'm not hearing each word in my head, although I talk kind of fast and I read words in my head faster than I talk. So
Yes.
I think I am probably around 250-ish. Average sounds about right. I've tested it back in the day, and I think it's been about the same for a good long while. So then I guess I'm a little, I don't know, spooked. My vision is, it's like I'm on a treadmill and I've cranked it faster than I can really handle. And I'm like, ah! And so then I guess I'm wondering, would I in fact be able to comprehend, remember, retain stuff that I'm flying through if I'm not saying each word to myself?
The short answer is yes. And this is where the active mindful conscious stuff comes into play. Like if you're going so fast that you're not getting it, then you got to slow down. It's about understanding you have gears, that sometimes you need to slow down either because of the content or because of where you're at that moment in time. If you're really stressed, you had a hard commute to get to work, or you just had a fight with your spouse, or you're dealing with something going on and you're just like, you're really distracted. I mean, that can affect it too. So you have to have the most ideal mindset, which is well, okay, I'm going to back up for a sec, because this is something that over the past 20 years, I've been teaching this stuff over 30 years, but over the past 20 years since we've had computers and phones, that people have learned how to multitask, but haven't relearned how to monofocus.
Okay.
And so it's so hard for people who are so busy, and especially type A personalities, even people like me at times, to just stop and just read, because they're thinking about so many other things. And so by learning how to calm the mind, be it through mindfulness techniques like meditation, yoga, tai chi, breathing practices, something that can center you will greatly benefit your reading.
Okay.
So I feel like that's important to mention, because we're so twitchy with all the stuff that we have to look at.
All right. Gotcha. So
Yeah.
we're just entering that tunnel of focus, and it's like all that is in my consciousness is this text, and away we go. Okay. And I guess I'm curious, is there a place you might recommend if I want to really take this for a spin? I'm going to get out the note card and rock and roll. Is there a place I can go to readily check my reading comprehension? I'm thinking about standardized tests from my youth. Reading comprehension was a section.
Yeah.
So
Right.
like how might I assess my comprehension and check that out to see if I am really blazing so fast I don't even know what's going on anymore?
So I think the first thing to know is that it's important just to know what your speed is to begin with. And of course, people read ideally for comprehension. So even if you don't have 10 questions after what you've read, you can still get your speed. I do have on my website a place where you can take a speed test, just so that you can see what your reading speed is. But if you're looking for speed with comprehension, one of my books, 10 Days to Faster Reading, has 10 readings in it with 10 questions. So that's a place that you could read and answer questions. Just don't look back at the reading to get your answers. And there are a few other timed reading exercises. I would bet if you Google them, you'd probably find them. I know teachers can use them in high schools. Some do in college level courses as well, where you can get readings with questions. I had one from Jamestown Publishers. I used to teach when I did high school or college. So you can get books like that if you wanted. You might even find it online as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so we're jumping around a little bit, but so we talked about the note card, and you also talked about word clusters and
Keywords.
Is there something to do there with the keywords, or what am I doing when I'm using the keyword method?
So in some ways it's hard to just describe. You really have to see it. However, what a keyword is basically any word that's about 3 letters in length or longer, and it usually gives you the most meaning of a sentence. And so it's almost like picking out from like a 12-word sentence, maybe 7 or 8 of those words that make sense. But by doing that, what you're doing is actively, consciously looking for the more important words, which keeps you more awake and alive and on task, more than daydreaming. Daydreaming, regression, and subvocalization are the 3 evils, if there is such thing, to reading. And so mind wandering is one of the things that happens when you go too slow. And so by having a strategy, you will tend to daydream less, first of all, which is helpful. And then by learning how to find keywords, you're going to be able to read it's just like newspaper headings. It's just like a headline. That's what I'm looking for, a newspaper headline. And it's just like, I get it. I don't need all those other words because I got it through these bigger words. They're more important. And you see the other words. You're just not stopping your eyes on all those words.
Yeah, I hear you. And I know what you mean about needing to see it. As I'm looking at my note draft starter outline questions, so which I flexibly refer to and it's supposed to march through. I've got, what are your best practices for people trying to get into speed reading? And I'm seeing in many of these words, what are your, don't need them, best practices, that's big.
Yeah.
For people trying, we'll take the trying to get into, okay, speed reading. Best practices, trying speed reading. So like those key words are maybe a little under half of the total words. And I get the gist of what this question is about.
Yes, correct.
So, okay, very cool.
So I just pulled out, I was looking for some reading material next to me. So I have a copy of my book that came out, Speed Reading, Little-Known Time-Saving Superpower, just opened up to squeeze the margins section, just open it up. I'm just going to read like 2 or 3 lines in keywords and just see if this makes sense to you. Okay, even though you're not seeing the other words. Reading newspaper column, quite different. Reading email, not just content different, also column width. Average newspaper column, 6 words across. Average email, anywhere 18 to 25 words across. I jump from end one line to beginning next. Much longer email than newspaper. Makes it hard eyes read. Find the next line accurately. Does that make sense at all to you?
It does. Well, it's funny, like I'm already jumping to implications like, oh, well, maybe if the email's wide, I should like shrink the window so that it's more manageable and it squeezes that in a bit.
Yeah. So it's and not saying it out loud, obviously, by doing it internally, you'll go a lot faster than if you do it out loud. But it's about getting good at just finding those bigger words. And that takes a little bit of play and experimentation. But once you get good at it, it's very helpful for some people, especially people that subvocalize every word. Because then, and even English as a second language learners find that this is a very helpful tool for them. So they don't have to read every it, that, to, the, to, and, for, if, because they look at those words as if they have to all be processed the same way, and they don't.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so we talked about getting in the right mindset, and maybe it's some breathing practice or mindfulness or a distraction-free space where it's just the text. We talk about looking at the clusters of words and then the note card, starting at the top and then scooting on down to cover what we have already read and put it at the top of each line, and not needing to subvocalize, and we can rock out at 4 times the speed without losing comprehension with practice. That's exciting. Abby, tell us, what are some of your top do's and don'ts that we haven't covered here? It sounds like there's some more tools with regard to margin use. What's the story here?
So there's a lot. There's so many different pieces of this whole concept. I think probably one of them is about the purpose. That a lot of people, when they sit down to read, they don't really know why are they reading what they're reading, and even more importantly, what do they need to get from it? And the reason I say that is because there are times when you're going through something where it's like, why am I reading this? It's not going to meet my objective, but it's there, so you feel like you have to read it. And so when you know that you're not going to need it, you can skim over it. I teach people how to effectively skim. You can skip it without guilt and just say, I read this because it's I read the rest of it because that was what I needed, and I didn't need that piece. And I give an example of let's say you wanted to read about like chocolate. You're reading a book on chocolate. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
You want to learn all about different kinds of chocolate and where they're made and blah, blah. But then there's a chapter that just talks about one maker of chocolate, Belgian chocolate. And you're like, yeah, I don't really like Belgian chocolate. It doesn't really matter. And so there's like a whole chapter, 12 pages on this one person. And you're like, I'll do a quick skim and find out if there's anything really interesting here. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time because it doesn't interest me. It doesn't float me in
Mm-hmm.
spiritual way, personally or professionally. So you become very selfish, I think, when you read active, mindfully, and consciously, because you don't want to spend time on things that aren't worth your time.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And I heard it said somewhere that if you can determine in 1 minute that a 30,000 word book will be of no value to you whatsoever, then it's as effective as you having read all 30,000 words in that 1 minute.
That's a great one. I like that. I agree 100%.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else are the top do's and don'ts you'd put forward?
So some of my other favorite things is that reading on screen, which is the bane of so many of our existence,
Yeah.
there are some really cool apps. I demonstrate them when I do webinars, and I like to share them whenever I can. One is called Beeline Reader, Beeline, reader.com. And so you go into like you're looking at, I don't know, Fortune magazine or Vanity Fair or whatever online, and you're reading an article. There's all these videos and pop-ups and things that are just like distracting you. And it's like so frustrating. And when you put Beeline Reader onto your computer, it can do really two things. Number one is it color codes the lines so that it's easier to read. So it goes from black to red, red to black, black to blue, blue to blue, black to black. So it's easier to find the next line. But then when you do this thing called activate in clean mode, it takes out all the ads, all the pop-up, and it puts the article in basically standard length lines all the way down the page in the colored text.
Oh, cool.
It is like the coolest app, and I use it all the time when I'm reading longer articles. Like, I don't want to read with all that stuff flashing at me. And so I think it's like $9, $10 a year to have that on my browser.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing. I like that a lot. And then another one that I like and I tell people about for learning how to process words faster is to get the free app of something called Spreeder, Spreeder. The free app of Spreeder, you can copy the words that you have on that article, just copy them and paste them into Spreeder, and you can force feed it to you at different speeds.
Huh.
And so you can do one word at a time. You can set it up, play with it. It's fun and it's free. And it's just it's another way to get the eyes and brain used to communicating faster because it's just one of my favorites.
That's cool.
Yeah, a lot of cool things. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'd love to get your take when you're focused in and reading fast. Are you more or less tired afterwards? On the one hand, I could see, oh man, I'm draining mental resources because I'm just going bananas in terms of fully dialed in and focused and slamming through so quick. Or is it like, hey, by being completely absorbed in that which I was doing, it is actually sort of like a flow state rejuvenator, or maybe it just varies person by person. What's your take on this?
I think it's both. I do think it's a flow state rejuvenator. I definitely, when I'm reading something that is very, interesting or something I really want to learn, and I sit down at a desk and I have it in front of me and I'm using my hands or a card to read with and I'm really dialed in with it, then when I'm done, I'm like, wow, that was so good. Like I read a book on an airplane. I went down to Florida last week and I just read half the book on the way there and half the book on the way back. And I'm like, wow,
yeah,
that was awesome. It was so good. I didn't feel tired from that at all. But if you read too slowly and you don't have a purpose, it's very draining because you're sitting there trying to learn it. You're trying to understand it, and it doesn't really work. And you can get so much more done when you have that purpose in mind. And obviously you don't want to read it, unless you're a night person. I don't know how people read at 10 or 11 at night unless they're really night owls, because that's like the last thing I want to do. I read like a couple pages and it's my
Right.
nightcap to go
Well,
to
and I think that's a
sleep.
great
That's like
illustration of
it.
the gear system. It's like I'm chilled out. I'm,
Mhm.
lying down. I'm not looking for max speed, max wisdom. It's just like,
Right.
here's a soothing thing
Right.
that's a bit
Yeah.
interesting.
Or I'm at the beach, I'm on vacation. I don't really want to read so fast. Or maybe I do because I love the book and I want to read fast. It's always a choice
Mhm.
once you have those 5 gears in place.
Okay. And so we talked about screen reading. There's a few tools right there for us. Anything else you recommend? Like maybe just shrinking the windows to get the width or margin in a certain spot? How many words or inches should I be going for? Because I got a big old screen here and I can resize this window any way I want. So what would be optimal
Yeah.
for my speed if I am not going to leap over to Beeline Reader or Spreeder? How do I think about like my windows and my line width?
So some people like the 6 words per line that are a part of like a newspaper column.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like that and you find satisfaction reading quickly across those lines, then get your screen to 6 to 8 words per line. Otherwise, if you look at like emails, could be anywhere from 18 to 25 words per line. And if that's comfortable for you, you can do that. But if it gets to be a lot more than that, the eyes have a really hard time tracking all the way across those lines and then back accurately to the beginning of the line.
Yeah.
And so you can use, I'm sharing this really special with you, Pete, just so you know, okay?
Oh, thank you.
Is that you can use your screen like the white card. So you take the text that you have in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
line it up to the top of your screen, like if there was a ruler there or just the top of your web page,
Mm-hmm.
and you use your scroll bar.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully your mouse can do it 1 click or 2 lines at a time. And so as you click it on your scroll bar, the lines go up into the quote unquote black, just like covering it up with the white card. So you've adapted the white card to the screen. Does that make sense in how I describe that?
Oh, it's very easy. Yeah.
Okay. And so it's another way to use the white card, but on a computer screen
That's clever. Yeah.
or a Kindle or whatever. It's just easier to use that way.
And my mouse likes to make giant leaps when I click it, but I could just use the down arrow and ba-boom, ba-boom, boom, boom.
You can use the down arrow.
Mm-hmm.
You could also change the settings
Oh,
of
okay.
your mouse just for reading purposes. It can be 1 line at a time
Mm-hmm.
when you go in your settings. So that's another way to do it.
Okay. Beautiful. Thank you. Well, anything else you want to make sure to mention before we hear about some of your favorite things?
There's so many other things, but I think one of them is about creating a manageable or a quality reading workload instead of a quantity. I think a lot of people have stuff stacked up, be it on their computer or on paper, on their desk, on their nightstand, in their bathroom, in their backpack, whatever. There's so many different things that, places that they have stuff. And after a while, it's just like, what am I going to get to next? I don't even know. And so by really evaluating what you have in your pile, and so I'm going to give this to you too, because you're a nice guy and I know the people there would like it. And so it's a quick 4-step process. So if you have a lot of stuff to read and you're like, I know there's stuff there that I don't want, and you put it in there 6 months ago, 6 years ago, and you just never got to it, the first thing you do is kind of put it all together and then put a number on it on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 is totally worthless, totally not worth my time, yuck, I hate it, to a 10. This is like the best thing ever. I love this. I can't wait to get to it. It's so good. And so you rank it on a scale of 0 to 10. And anything over 6, you put in one pile. Anything under 6, you put in another pile. The stuff under 6, you recycle, get rid of, don't need it, don't want it. At least right now, it's not worthwhile to you. So get rid of it. And then what's left, you think you're done, but you're not. Now you have to say, well, how much time do I have to read on a regular basis? If you only read 5 minutes a day, get rid of a lot of your stuff because you're just not going to get to it if you're just thinking you will. So making more time to read is really important, but then managing how much time do I read with what I have in my pile.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to read things that are of value to you, things that float you spiritually, personally, professionally, and then make sure that you make the time to do it, because that's how you get a pile that's under control. You don't want to have boxes and boxes or bookcases and bookcases of things you've never read. That doesn't help. So it's about being attracted to your reading workload instead of repelled.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, now could you share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
I think I actually have two. One of them is whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Mhm.
That's by Henry Ford, because I sometimes I have stinking thinking. So it does help quite a bit.
Oh, thank you.
And the other one is there has to be a better way. That's another quote. I don't know. I say that. I don't know who says it, but I always think, just when I think things aren't working, like, there's got to be a better way. It's got to be a better way.
That makes me think of, I think there's some infomercial pitch man who says, at least that's how my wife and I say that to each other. We do it in a British accent, in a slow infomercial-y voice. There's got to be a better way. Well, there is, Abby. Buy my product.
I like that. That's good.
And how about a favorite study or experiment or a bit of research?
So I quote this study. It's called the Ebbinghaus curve of forgetting. It's Ebbinghaus, in case anybody wants to look it up. And basically, when you read something today without any active mindful conscious strategies, you're not going to remember more than 10% of it 3 days from now, unless you talk about it, reread it several times, or experience it in some other way. And so by becoming more active, mindful, and conscious to begin with, you remember 50%. You don't remember just 10. You remember 50% or more because of the intention. Mm-hmm. And so I love this Ebbinghaus curve of forgetting. And so you need to repeat and reread and experience with other people.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And a favorite book?
I'm going to say that one of my favorite books is called Yoga and the Quest for the True Self by Stephen Cope.
Okay.
He's a person that I've followed at Kripalu Center for Yoga and Meditation. It's a really good book.
All right. And a favorite tool?
Beeline Reader. I think Beeline Reader is my favorite tool for sure.
All right. And a favorite habit?
Favorite habit for me is probably doing exercise that feels good and doesn't cause pain.
Okay.
Which is like, I'm a swimmer, so I swim laps and walking and yoga, but I don't like things like lifting weights because they cause problems for me.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's just things that don't cause pain.
And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with folks? They quote back to you often?
It's more what I quote to them. It's my tagline that the road to knowledge begins with a turn of a page. It was a fortune that I found in a fortune cookie when I decided to start my business in 1988. And so I keep that. It's just, to me, very powerful. The road to knowledge begins with a turn of a page.
And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where would you point them?
Please, thank you to my website at revitupreading.com, REVITUP reading.com. And there's the free test that you can take, the speed reading test. There's also a free sneak peek, which will allow you one module, which actually introduces the phrasing concept in my favorite exercise called Discipline Your Eyes. So you can get all that for free. Mm-hmm. So encourage people to go check that out.
All right. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, Abby, this has been a treat. I wish you much luck and fun reading.
Thank you. You too. I read a lot. It's your turn.
I loved Abby's take on how putting the note card on top of the line and moving it down can prevent your eyeballs from backtracking. So simple and yet powerful. I'm digging it. I'm loving it, as well as I've played with the apps as well for screen reading stuff. Cool stuff too. Again, the show notes, the transcript, and the links to items we've referenced are at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP783. Hope to catch you next time. And peace.
Thanks for listening. To get the most out of the show, we recommend 2 key things. First, check out the extra resources at awesomeatyourjob.com. You can find this episode's transcript and links, as well as the perfect episode for your situation. You can search the full text transcripts of hundreds of episodes or explore episodes tagged by topic and competency covered. Second, subscribe to the podcast and get future episodes automatically. You can subscribe by telling Siri and several other smartphones and speakers, subscribe to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast, or by tapping subscribe in your podcast player of choice. If you'd like some extra help figuring out podcasts and how subscriptions work, visit awesomeatyourjob.com/subscribe for guidance. Hope to catch you on the next episode of How to Be Awesome at Your Job.